So, my name is Jeremy Carrier, and this is our Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for March 19th. You're going to start the meeting at 6:02 p.m. Just for public record, if we can go across the table and introduce yourself.
Ron Harrop, member.
Jeremy Carrier.
Kathleen Braun, member.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask it this time for all members here to recognize that this is, again, a meeting. It is not a hearing. I know we do have some audience members that would be eager to talk, but at this time I am going to voice that we're not going to be taking in questions or suggestions unless we need to. We may ask of you at that time. You may speak. So I thank you very much for your understanding with that. First point of business for this evening is possible rescheduling of the Granby Bow and Gun Club hearing that at the last meeting was set for April 9th, 2019. There was an unforeseen conflict with this date when it was decided upon at that February meeting. The board members must take into consideration at this time whether or not to reschedule the hearing, know that certain ZBA requests were not met. I have passed out to each of the members your top sheet. Right there actually is the listing of all the ZBA, the zoning bylaw requirements of what we asked the Bow and Gun Club to present for a site plan drawing. You'll see on the second page, and I have an enlarged version of that. We did not receive back what was requested in full detail. There are no topographical maps. There are no detailed drawings of any other features of this land whatsoever. All we have is the pad and distances to the roads and to the property lines. This is not what we had requested. This isn't what we wanted. So it goes before the board whether we would like to still have the hearing and discuss the lack of all of the information that was handed on there and their non-compliance with the zoning board of appeals process. So I would recommend that we still have a hearing and again discuss that. The possible hearing date would move to April 23rd, Tuesday. Okay, so I'm making that motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, a second. All in favor? Okay, so we are going to hold new hearing date for April 23rd, 2019. And that would be at 6 p.m.
Are we going to do it here, or do we know yet?
I believe this all it will have to be announced, but I believe we're going to have it at the Council on Aging if it's available. So that way we have a large enough venue for people to. Yes, we do not want to inconvenience town members. We want to open up to as many people there as we can. We highly encourage that for the process. Our original date was March 21st to have all documentation into this Zoning Board of Appeals. I would like to make a motion that that is still the date that they have to turn in anything else at this time. So I make that motion that...
I'll second it.
First. It's been seconded.
I agree, all in favor.
Okay, all in favor.
I have a question though. If, just as thinking as a committee, if they do not meet this deadline with additional materials, what is our next step? I just want to...
Our next step was to address that question at the hearing.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Because it was part of the process. It was what was deemed necessary for us to do a good judgment call on whether or not. And I think the facts that are brought up by us at that meeting and the general public would aid us in our decision as to whether or not to grant that.
Absolutely. Okay. Very good. I just want to be clear. Thank you.
So for that, I actually have to sign a new agreement with them in that time. So, let me see. Hold on a second. So that'll be a new agreement to reschedule the hearing for application of issuance of a special permit pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 9. So, whereas the petitioner, Granby Bow and Gun Club Incorporated, hereinafter petitioner, has submitted an application for the issuance of a special permit pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and the Town of Granby zoning bylaws concerning property located at 85 Chicopee Street, Granby, Mass, on or about November 9th, 2018. Whereas the Granby Zoning Board of Appeals, ZBA, has previously scheduled a hearing to open on said application for January 8th, 2019, then moved to March 5th, 2019, and were continued upon the request of petition and agreed upon by the petitioner and ZBA. Whereas the ZBA subsequently scheduled a public hearing on said application for April 9th, 2019. Whereas by correspondence of March 5th, 2019, the petitioner, through their counsel's attorney, Justin Raffleson, Esquire, has requested a rescheduling of the public hearing so scheduled due to his unavailability on the date set by the ZBA at that meeting and previous travel commitments. Whereas the meeting of the ZBA on March 19th, which has been voted upon this evening, authorizing chairperson to enter into an agreement with them for that said date. Okay, so this should restart the process again,
Okay.
things. And again, we need at that meeting to discuss the lack of all of the actual plans that were required to have the meeting. Okay. So our next point is to actually read and approve meeting notes going from January 8th, 2019. This was actually considered to be a meeting. That was the original date that we were supposed to have a hearing for the Granby Bow and Gun Club, which was actually postponed. So discussion by Donald Zabrowski that the hearing schedules for the time had not opened because there will have to be a continuance as per agreement to schedule a hearing for application of issuance of a special permit pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 9. The ZBA has asked that the Granby Bow and Gun Clubs submit a full site plan including topographical maps as per bylaws. After discussions concluded between Mr. Mercier from the Granby Bow and Gun Club and the ZBA chairperson, Donald Zabrowski, the agreed upon date for the new hearing was set for March 5th, 2019, was voted on by the board and passed unanimously. Residents of the Granby and Belchertown that were present voiced disappointment at the hearing being postponed. The audience was reminded that this was not something that could be advertised of the postponement at such a time. Agreement between the petitioner and the ZBA chairperson was signed to postpone the hearing. Mr. Shalou, a neighbor of the Bow and Gun Club, presented photographs and documentation to the ZBA for their review in the case against granting the special permit. Motion was made to adjourn. Motion seconded. All in favor. Meeting adjourned at approximately 6:50 p.m. I make a motion to accept these minutes as read. Seconded. All in favor. Okay, so these are the acceptance of the January 8th, 2019 meeting of the ZBA. Next, we are to read and accept or change the February 19th, 2019 minutes of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Granby Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on February 19th, 2019 was held at the Granby Public Safety Department buildings. Jeremy Carrier opened the meeting at 6:30 p.m. by reading the official meeting notice. Members of the Zoning Board of Appeals introduced themselves. Jeremy Carrier, Ron Harrop, Alan Champagne, and Kathleen Bronner. Mr. Carrier noted that it was a meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals and not a hearing. The general public may only speak to the board if the board wishes, information or clarification on the pertinent matter within the meeting. Mr. Carrier announced that Donald Zabrowski submitted his resignation as chair of the ZBA, and the committee wishes to acknowledge their appreciation for Mr. Zabrowski's many years of dedication to the ZBA. It was shared that the ZBA would only address 3 points of business at this meeting. Restructuring of the ZBA, the Granby Bow and Gun Club, 85 Chicopee Street, Granby, Mass. Request for a waiver to the ZBA's request for certified site plan and survey. On appeal by Mr. Joseph Shalou, 140 School Street, Granby, to overturn a decision of compliance made by the zoning code officer, Mr. Gregory Briggs, in regards to the observances of the shooting events that had taken place at the Granby Bow and Gun Club on September 30th, 2018. The restructuring of the ZBA. Jeremy Carrier's name was placed in nomination for the chair of the ZBA, and Kathleen Bronner's name was placed in nomination for vice chair of the ZBA. The ZBA committee unanimously approved both of these appointments. Request for waiver by Granby Bow and Gun Club. Waiver request for a certified site plan and survey. A decision ensued on a waiver request based on the zoning bylaws 6.33. Because of the nature and interest of all parties involved, Granby Bow and Gun Club and abutters, and changes on the property in recent years, the ZBA unanimously voted not to grant the waiver, but extend the deadline for the petitioner for the submission of a certified site plan and survey until March 21st, 2019. Appeal to overturn the decision of compliance made by Zoning Code Officer Mr. Gregory Briggs in regards to the observances of the shooting events that had taken place at the Granby Bow and Gun Club on September 30th, 2018. It was noted that although the meeting was not a public hearing, the ZBA does not have to open the meeting for public speak. Mr. Shalhoub was given 5 minutes to present his appeal to the ZBA. Mr. Shalhoub shared copies of documentations already provided to the ZBA, narrative and photos of the site. Mr. Shalhoub spoke of his concerns in regards to the zoning code officer's decision that the Bow and Gun Club was in violation of their cease and desist order. After Mr. Shalhoub spoke, Jeremy Carrier shared that the ZBA needed to point out that Mr. Shalhoub filed his complaint well past the zoning code officer's decision, past the 30-day appeal period as defined by the Massachusetts general laws and the bylaws. Thus, ZBA does not have jurisdiction over this matter. Jeremy Carrier allowed Mr. O'Toole, the town's attorney, to clarify the Massachusetts general laws that govern the filing of an appeal and the time frame as to how the Zoning Board of Appeals has no legal power over this matter. The next ZBA hearing was set for April 9th, 2019. With there being no further business, the ZBA concluded its meeting at 6:50 p.m. Make a motion to accept the notes of that meeting as read. Seconded. Okay. Favor. Therefore, I accept all of the minutes from that meeting as well. At this time, this concludes the business of the Zoning Board of Appeals for today. Do I have any discussion that needs to be done?
No, I don't.
No, I think we have clear next steps, so, have you can motion to close the meeting?
Okay, I'll second that motion to close the meeting. Okay, all in favor? Meeting is hereby closed. We'll accept no further questions or any documentation